Empty slot. Here we go. This is a Dramatic Labs adventure. The relationships and events you are about to experience will be shaped by the choices you make. Cracking my knuckles, sorry. From Dramatic Labs.
Captain's log, stardate 57931.4. The crew is restless. After spending too many months piecing our ship back together, we're finally about to venture out on a new mission. And the crew isn't letting this unprecedented ion storm slow them down. They're ready for something different. I know I am. Perhaps more than any of them. Fortunately, nothing ever stays the same. It's entropy, the nature of the universe. Change is inevitable. And while entropy says order gives way to chaos, in this case, change is good. Our new first officer is en route to the Resolute. Jara Rydek. I know she'll bring a welcome dose of new blood to the crew.
Thanks.
No problem.
I'm not great with flying. But these little shuttles are the worst.
Stick around in Starfleet and you'll be sure to see worse than this. I have.
And you're here to talk about it.
In the flesh.
That's good.
I wonder if I should move my camera.
Sorry, I'm a little anxious.
I hadn't noticed.
I'm on my way to my first assignment. When we get to the starbase, I'm transferring on to the Resolute.
So am I.
It won't be easy for Jara to step in at the 11th hour like this. But if she's half the officer I knew she could become when she was a cadet at Starfleet Academy, she'll be the XO this ship needs right now.
Ah, going with the old. Well, that's an Equinox class ship down there. Okay. I can't tell what that one was at the top. Is that the Akira class? Going with the old Starbase design. Plus you got an old Excelsior and a Miranda class. What's up, Morally Flexible? How you doing?
A starbase on the very edge of Federation space. Long way from home now.
How goes your Wednesday? I'm doing good because I gotta play a new Star Trek game. Like I was saying in my intro, the very first video game I ever played was a Star Trek game.
Commander? I'm not usually such a nervous wreck, by the way. I actually did well at the Academy.
Oh yeah?
Maybe you've heard of the Torvalum test?
Sounds familiar.
It's a tactical simulator that makes the Kobayashi Maru look like a picnic on Pintaris 5. Anyway, I finished in the top 20. Not just in my class. I mean, all time. In the history of the Academy. So, there's that.
Really? That's quite impressive.
Thank you. It was tough, but you know, I set my mind to it and it paid off.
Ah, what are we playing on PlayStation tonight?
Please
I was
wait
working on a
here.
wood burning earlier. Just finished it up.
Hold it there for a few seconds. Welcome, Commander Rydek.
Wait, you're Jara Rydek? You absolutely crushed the Torvalin test. You finished in what, like the top 3?
That would be me.
Now I'm really... It's an honor to meet you, Commander. Sorry, I didn't realize before. I just came off the shuttle and was glad to be on solid ground, so to speak.
The pleasure's mine, Ensign.
Paul Calloway.
Good to meet you.
I believe Commander Ermot is expecting you. He's in the concourse just ahead.
See you on the Resolute.
I actually should have paid attention to see what kind of class ship it was that the Resolute is. I couldn't tell if it was the Miranda or the Excelsior class. I like both designs. I wish it would tell me what ship this has.
Commander.
Wait, no, that is the Resolute. Okay, what kind of class is that? I don't recognize that one. I used to know them all by heart. I'll have to look it up on my phone.
If I remember my briefing, Commander Ermot is a Bolian, so I'm looking for someone with blue skin. Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm
All right.
Well, I'm not sure where my departure dock is. The Resolute's gonna leave without me.
Look here. The Resolute is leaving from this dock.
Oh, you're right. Nerves must be getting to me.
Dude, you're in a command uniform. You might want to pay attention.
Thanks so much, Commander.
I like this uniform design. It's probably my favorite of the Star Trek uniforms.
Starbase 128 has 4 docks. I'll replicate myself a meal once I'm on board.
Okay, looking for a Bolian. There's a Bolian. Anybody else to talk to over here? Nope. Here's my Bolian. Oh yeah, it takes away post-nemesis, yeah.
Welcome to the
Basically the same time, I think, as roughly as Lower Decks.
Commander Jan Ermot,
Love that show.
operations officer on the Resolute.
Can't wait for Strange New Worlds. Live action Boimler and Beckett.
Wasn't
Oh,
too much
heck
trouble
yeah.
getting here. This storm isn't making anything easy for us right now. I know conditions are less than ideal at the moment.
It was a bit bumpy, but otherwise okay.
Did my camera get in the way of that
My
decision?
apologies. This storm is unlike anything I've seen before.
Centaur class. Okay.
We're grateful you were able to come fill our first officer vacancy at such short notice. From everything I've read and everything I've heard, we're lucky you were available to us. Coming from a premier starship and all. To our little research vessel.
What exactly have
I might
you
move
heard
it up into the top
First in
corner.
your class at the Academy. Received the Starfleet Award of Valor during the Dominion War. Most recently, Tactical Officer and Chief of Security on the USS Endeavor.
You've done your homework?
Like I said, we're very lucky.
Well, I'm thinking of it. I'll move it now.
The USS Resolute. She may not look like much compared to the bigger ships, but as far as science vessels go, she can more than hold her own. And she doesn't look so bad considering 6 months ago she was nearly cracked in half, venting plasma, fighting for her life.
It was an accident?
Equipment malfunction. An accident suggests fault, but no one's to blame. It was a planned test, but the warp core was pushed beyond its limits. It destabilized the dilithium, there was a runaway reaction, and the warp bubble deformed. We thought we could reach a higher resonant frequency, but it was more than she could handle. Cost us our first officer and 22 of our crew. At the end of the day, we're all responsible for each other. That's what it means to be a crew.
I can't even begin to imagine what that must have been like for you. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you. It does weigh heavy. There are some things you can't forget.
Yeah, I'm playing on my
Did you
Series
lose
X.
anyone close to you?
Too many. And to that I'll just say, you have big shoes to fill. Listen, I realize you've known Captain Solano for quite some time, and I'm sure you're ready to bring your best. But I should warn you that when the captain announced you would be the new first officer, there were those who felt it was a mistake, that he should have promoted from within. So you might want to tread lightly at first. Until they come to value your contributions as much as he does.
Thank you. Always good to have a sense for what you're walking into.
I just thought you ought to know.
I appreciate it.
Starfleet has assigned us a high-priority mission to the Hotari region. I'll let the captain brief you on board. I know he's eager to see you.
Will we be mission ready in time?
We have every intention. The crew has been working around the clock to get the ship ready. There's still so much to do.
Alright, I'm going to turn the music down a little bit. But this is where we meet our other character. Because I believe we're playing with 2 characters. If I read all the prep stuff correctly.
Stuck. I got just the thing.
Gotta rotate right stick this way. Yeah, you can tell this was made by people who made games like 2 generations ago. There's definitely some of that era DNA here. This is also the same team making the Expanse game.
Is that?
So I'm hoping they modernize things a little bit more for their second outing as a team. This is their first since they left Telltale. The lower decks.
I thought that thing was totally fried. Nice work, Carter.
Nothing to it, Neely.
And not a moment too soon. The boss wants us down in engineering. Like, now.
Yeah, it's a little outdated and graphically, but honestly, all it needs to be a successful Star Trek game is a good story. Because we haven't had a good one in quite some time. I mean, the last, like, universally seen as a good one was like a shooter from like 03. And then before that, it's like the 25th anniversary, maybe game, and then Klingon and Starfleet Academies. And that's about it. For like, damn, that's some good Star Trek games. And the story of this one's getting good reviews. So, that's all it's got to be for me. Oh yeah, I was gonna... We'll go into settings. I'm gonna turn the music down a bit and turn the sound effects volume down a bit. Resume. Carter, okay. This must be Carter.
I heard the new XO just arrived. Won't be long before we get underway. I just hope whatever Chovok called us down for, it's something good. I can never tell with him. I'd rather not end up degaussing plasma manifolds. Hanging upside down makes me queasy.
You and me working together, we can tackle anything he throws at us.
Your optimism is positively contagious. Looks like we got here before.
Lieutenant Commander Chovok.
We were just looking for you, Commander.
Petty Officers Edsalar, Diaz. I was beginning to think you would be late. We are all hands on deck right now, which means if you are not at your post at the appointed time, I do not have someone to replace you. A point I have been forced to make to Petty Officer Edsalar on repeated occasions.
Apologies for the delay, Commander.
I do not want your apologies. Simply see to it that it does not happen again.
So, I don't suppose you wanted us down here to check in before we go off duty?
Equip yourselves in EV suits to work on the exterior of the hull. I need you to tune the structural integrity field for optimal performance. The subspace distortions and ionic interference we are experiencing are preventing the proper calibration. But this ship must be ready to depart shortly, despite the storm. The precise nature of these disturbances are not fully understood. But many systems have been affected by the wide band of emissive activity.
Whatever it throws at us, we'll be ready. We've got the best chief engineer in the fleet.
I am a Vulcan, Mr. Diaz. Flattery is not necessary. All that I require is that you do your job. Right now, that entails critical preparations, because long-range sensors show that these disturbances will be more severe at our destination, the Hotari system. You have your orders. Do not delay.
Yes,
Roger
Commander
that.
Chovok.
I see what the reviews were saying, though. The lack of, like, Star Trek themed score is a little off-putting.
That's what Chovok said.
That's one of the most iconic parts of the franchise.
It means this ship
It's not
is ready
unpleasant to
go
listen
out.
to, it's just
Yeah,
not
I know it.
Star
So
Trek,
they're
you know?
throwing every warm body at it. And they're going to leave on schedule. Consequences be damned.
Won't get an argument from me, Nelly. Sure seems like everyone's still scrambling.
And I get it. When has a relaunch ever gone off without a hitch? But this isn't just any old refit or any old relaunch.
Whoa. Excuse me.
A lot of new faces coming on board. It's gotta be tough coming as a replacement. That's for sure.
They seem alright. Something that happened 6 months ago while they were off on another ship? Well, that's nothing to hold against them.
Oh yeah, this is a great era for Star Trek.
I guess getting a little.
I'm just hoping the
slow.
writer's strike and the potential SAG and DGA strikes don't stop them from doing new Star Trek stories.
Now there's an old face I didn't expect to see again. Hey, Miranda.
You weren't gonna leave without me, were you?
Miranda, you're here?
We thought you were staying on the Adirondack.
Transfer came in at the last minute, so I figured I'd slum it on this bucket of bolts. Looks like you got her back together pretty nicely. I wasn't sure what to expect.
Wouldn't take long to reverse that transfer and get you right back on the Adirondack.
I didn't know you had that kind of authority.
Oh, Carter's going places. You'd be surprised what he can do.
Still, I am glad to be here. He still owes me a bottle of Saurian brandy. Don't think I forgot.
Oh yeah, it's coming back to me now.
Maybe Carter can rustle up that bottle and we can give you a proper welcome. As soon as we wrap up this quick little spacewalk.
Only it's not going to be so quick, because this is a Telltale style game. Shit's going to go wrong. And we're going to have to make
Here.
decisions.
Thanks.
So what's the word? Are you back in the security rotation?
Yep. Still running with the usual suspects.
Whoa.
Good to go. See you on the other side.
The bird is indeed the word.
Activating magnetic souls.
Oh this is the Nemesis style spacesuits. You know, they've got the look down. If not as graphically, you know, like high res as you might, or not high res, but like, trying to think of the word. Modern, let's say. They've got the era down.
That view never gets old.
Let's go.
Yeah, fidelity, that's the word. See, that sounds a little Star Trek, more Star Trek right there. Not quite. Like, I would just, if they're using the TNG or DS9 era, I would just use some of those themes. Maybe they couldn't get the rights to play them all, but it's weird because it is a Star Trek game. I do like the pace of getting to meet our two main characters, though, pretty quickly. So far, that's pretty good.
Captain Solano should be here momentarily. You'll have to forgive me, I don't know much about Kobleons. But my understanding is you need a steady supply of duridium to keep your cell structure stabilized, or bad things start to happen. And we have plenty of duridium in sickbay, so there's no risk of running out.
Thank you.
Feel free to make yourself at home. And help yourself to whatever you like from the replicator.
Interesting choice with the Kobleons, because the last time we saw them in Star Trek, they were like an antagonistic kind of... The people were seen as like less than, let's say, seedy. They were seedier, because they were forced into the black market to get the duridium. Because it can't be replicated. You have to have the natural source. Okay, is there no place to... Oh, there we go.
The first mineral Captain Solano ever discovered.
Looks like a big geode.
Always was the nostalgic type.
Got plenty of those in Iowa.
Jara Ryder. Last time I saw you, it was graduation from the academy. You'd already secured one of the most prestigious assignments possible. And you were burning with
I'll stay
enough
here.
ambition to fuel
Hook up with the
7
posse.
trips
What's up,
to the
Centroka?
expansion.
I'm a posse
It's
magnet.
good to see you again, Captain.
I mean, I love
I'd
posse.
be happy
How you
to
doing?
have you on the Resolute.
Make that into a
Regret
t-shirt.
is, we couldn't provide you with a warmer welcome. The arrival of a first officer to her new ship deserves a bit of fanfare. But
Good to hear.
unfortunately,
You'll have to let me know in Discord when the wood burning shows up.
That would be totally unnecessary. I don't need any pomp and circumstance.
Playing a new Star Trek game.
5 minutes and already you're trying to make us more efficient. I like it. As I'm sure you've heard, we've had a rough go of it these last 6 months. The ship suffered some damage, but not nearly as much as the crew.
I heard that you had an equipment malfunction.
Is that what they're calling it? No, that's just someone being generous. If anything, it was a leadership malfunction. We were on the verge of a major scientific breakthrough. A quantum leap forward in warp core technology. 10,000 teradynes per second. The ability to travel at a sustained rate of speed longer and faster than we ever dreamed. What would have been the crowning achievement of my career. Right there. Within our grasp. Until it all went so horribly wrong. We pushed her too hard, and a warp core malfunction overloaded the system, creating a pressure gradient way beyond what the ship can handle.
Say in a second once the dialogue's done.
We lost some of our best people. As captain, I have to take full responsibility. It was my decision to make. And I have to...
Okay, so, premise of the game. It's basically post-Nemesis, so it's basically after anything from Nemesis, but it's like around the same time as Lower Decks-ish, like Season 1 Lower Decks, Riker is the captain of the Titan. He hasn't semi-retired yet. Neither, I don't think, has Picard, technically. Maybe he's gotten promoted by now. I'm not sure exactly how many years post-Nemesis this is. Might be before Picard becomes an admiral. But you're on being posted as the commander to a scientific vessel as her new XO because 23 members of the crew died in an accident that he just described about a new warp core technology. Basically, if you remember Voyager, they did their whole quantum slip space thing, and like it nearly fucked them all up, and there was this whole time travel thing. Kind of like a similar type of thing. They were trying to push the boundaries of what warp travel can do in the Star Trek universe, and shit went horribly wrong, as it pretty much always does with Star Trek, and a lot of people died, including the ship's XO, which is your main character's Jara Rydek, her character. Also have Carter, who is a engineering officer, I think ensign, is part of the lower decks crew, and he's going to be the other counterpart that you play. So it's going to be two main characters. Eventually, then we're going to get sent on this diplomatic mission, get involved in this war between a couple of races, and then shit gets weird, and we got to make a lot of decisions along the way, and probably have some people die. So that's the basic premise. Back to it.
Live with the consequences.
You're being too hard on yourself. It wasn't your fault.
It's not a question of blame. It's about responsibility. No matter what the circumstance.
Indeed. This is a Telltale style game because it's mostly people from Telltale that started a new studio once Telltale went bankrupt.
My senior staff had been willing to trust me. There was
So like Walking Dead, Tales of the Borderlands type game.
I think that cost me his confidence. I don't want you to pull any punches. Certainly not on my account. But once we decide on a course of action, I need everyone to fully commit to the mission. Anything short of that just won't work. And that's when things start to go sideways.
Whether I agree or disagree, I can promise that I'll be honest to a fault.
Good. That's exactly what I'm looking for. But at the end of the day, it has to be my call. Look, I'll be blunt. We can't afford another mistake. Or at least I can't. I feel like my career is hanging in the balance here. We need a win. Something to restore the crew's confidence.
I understand.
On a more positive note, Starfleet has tasked us with what they're calling a mission of the highest priority. Escorting a senior diplomat to Hotari space. Two previously peaceful and otherwise non-aggressive civilizations now find themselves on the brink of all-out war.
So it's a peacekeeping mission.
I see it as a golden opportunity to not only prove what the Resolute and her crew are truly capable of, but also a mission for which we're uniquely qualified. This ionic storm. Our long-range sensors suggest it's several orders of
Indeed,
magnitude
Pathos.
stronger than anything on record. A total anomaly like nothing we've seen before. And you'll never guess where it leads.
Hotari.
Exactly. Very nearly in the precise location where we're headed. Where I imagine the interference will be exponentially greater. But the diplomat will brief us on the details of the rendezvous.
So basically, we're being sent into the eye of a storm, more powerful than anything on record.
Well, yes. But we're taking every precaution. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. I expect we'll have
Probably
some rough
Pathos.
sledding when we arrive, so I need you to prepare the crew for the worst. There's just one more thing I want to clarify up front. The metric that for me will be the ultimate measure of your success.
What is it?
If after serving as my first officer, you don't one day find yourself with a ship of your own, then I will consider it my personal failure. When that might happen is entirely up to you. But it goes without saying, you have my full support.
It's been a dream of mine since before I can remember. So I would be honored to become a captain someday.
As long as you're willing to do the work, you have my promise. I'll do everything in my power to see that it happens.
Thank you.
Come, let me introduce you to the crew.
So Pathos, how goes Wednesday for you? Yeah, you can really tell the fidelity was not a priority, which is totally okay in a game like this. And I do hope for the Expanse, though, they step it up a little bit. It's the same team doing both. That one doesn't have any near release date yet, other than the initial teaser trailer.
Everyone, if I could have your attention for a moment. I'd like to introduce Commander Jara Rydek, our new first officer. Some quick introductions. This is Lieutenant Handar, our helmsman, one of the best in the business.
One of?
Well, what he lacks in humility, he more than makes up for in ability.
A pleasure to meet you, Commander.
Likewise.
Next, we have Commander Westbrook, our chief science officer. I've come to rely on his expert counsel on a regular basis.
I bet this guy thinks he should have been first officer.
Commander Rydek, it is such an honor to meet you.
This is our tactical officer, Lieutenant Bedrosian, who's been looking forward to meeting you for about as long as I can remember.
I've been following your career for quite some time, and I look forward to learning as much as I can from you.
You've heard of me?
Well, I have to admit, one of the reasons I've followed your career is because you're part Kobliad, because of what you've overcome. Starfleet stands up for people who can't defend themselves, and you were one of those people once. But since then, you've done so much to protect others who need it.
Having TV is nice, Pedos, isn't it?
Admire that. So, you've been something of an inspiration to me. Not that I've done anything close to what you've done, but you definitely set a standard to strive for.
I don't know what to say. That's incredibly flattering, thank you.
I hope someday I can.
Dude, yeah,
follow
Big
your
Ten
footsteps.
tournaments going on right now.
Sure.
I was fucking rolling, dude.
And then, of course, you've already met Commander.
They ruled Michigan yesterday.
Please do everything you can to make Commander Rydek feel at home here.
But that science officer's going to be a real dick to me.
Have an urgent meeting with the Starbase commander to get our authorization to get underway. If they drag their feet any longer, we won't make our rendezvous. The bridge is yours.
The helm. The Resolute is a refitted Centaur class, meaning it's capable of quick maneuvers. Can't wait to see what she can do.
Oh, I thought we'd get to talk to him. Okay, so we're just examining the stations.
Science station. The Resolute is a science vessel, primarily. Might explain Commander Westbrook's attitude. I'll have to speak with him later. Tactical station. Hopefully a diplomatic mission won't.
Yeah, college baseball is nuts, man.
But if it comes
I want to get down to Omaha for the World Series one of these years. If the Hawkeyes ever make it, I'm going.
So many decks, full of crew that are now my responsibility.
This does make me want to restart Strange New Worlds, though. I might have to do that tonight.
Communications keeps us in contact internally and with other vessels.
That first season was awesome. If nobody has seen Strange New Worlds, highly recommend.
Operations, staffing, supplies. There's a lot to keep track of on a starship.
Yep.
Good thing we have Commander Ermont.
Okay, I believe that is everything. Time to sit in the chair.
Commander, Chief Engineer Chovak needs to lower the structural integrity field. He's sent a crew out to recalibrate the emitters in response to the danger posed by the storm. We just need your go-ahead.
Permission granted.
Lowering structural integrity field, now.
Entering maintenance mode. Condition blue.
Alright, here comes a big decision point. At least from what I saw in the trailer. It sure looked like there would be one here. Two people, gravity boots, lightning storm in space. What do you think's gonna
Every time
happen?
we're out here, I half expect to see her in pieces again.
She's still got some scars on her.
Yeah, this is right after Nemesis. I guess like a year or two.
All I wanted was
Around
to
the
fly out of
start
town.
time of Lower Decks.
But this isn't exactly how I pictured it.
On the outside of the ship?
No. Sometimes it feels like we're just part of the machinery. Don't you want more than that? I mean, Starfleet is noble and all, but it's still a machine. A massive, massive machine.
Now, what are you complaining about? We got the best seat in the house out here. You wanted to get away. I enlisted because I didn't want to wait years just to get out and see the galaxy. I wanted to go somewhere, see new worlds, look up at a sky no one's ever seen before. Just because I'm cranking a hyperspanner up in a Jeffries tube today doesn't mean that's all I'll ever be. Diaz to Commander Chovak. We are at the Sif emitter.
Acknowledged. You may proceed with the recalibration.
Beginning recalibration.
Time for the techno babble. Okay, what? Turn nodes.
Looks good. That wasn't so hard.
Commander Westbrook, right? Chief Science Officer.
You remembered my name and my rank. Impressive.
Yeah, he's a dick.
Yes, I'm the Chief Science Officer, and I have the dubious honor of being the most senior officer on this bridge. I know this ship inside and out. Better than just about anyone.
You seem to think very highly of yourself.
With good reason. I'm curious, though. A Kobliad, or half in your case, is an odd choice for first officer, given your vulnerable condition and all. But if, as an example, we found ourselves in a hostile situation, and you were suddenly incapacitated because you needed an infusion, what would happen then? You'd leave Captain Solano without an XO. Granted, that would be a worst-case scenario, but not outside the realm of possibility.
That's very kind of you to be concerned about my well-being. But you don't need to trouble yourself on my account. I'll be fine.
Smug prick.
Well, I wouldn't say I was concerned, just curious, that's all. Listen, can I be blunt, Commander?
I see no reason to stop now.
Commander Sutherland, your predecessor, was one of the best first officers in all of Starfleet. His record was impeccable and his reputation was without equal. I mean no disrespect, but the shoes you're stepping into are almost impossible to fill. He was loved by the crew, and he was one of my closest friends. So I can only hope that you'll live up to expectations.
I don't think I could ever replace Commander Sutherland. And it would be a mistake to even try.
Seeing as Captain Solano is on the
Ah, his must be neutral. Or maybe that's negative. I don't know what the colors all mean.
Unlike anything I've ever seen. At the moment, I can't tell you if the Resolute will shrug it off or if we're putting ourselves at risk. However, if we learn more about its patterns, its nature, we can come up with a scientific countermeasure. Just a moment.
Oh, that's a... I didn't realize he was Bajoran.
We've got a massive energy wave inbound. On screen.
Tracing its trajectory.
Starbase docking clamps are holding.
The storm's emissions are fluctuating, coming in waves. And if my projections are right, we're about to get hit by a wideband burst of ionic
Oh, that
energy.
or I was going to say, is it the
Like a
caretaker
tsunami.
array?
I'm reading power abnormalities all over the ship.
Red alert!
Aye. Evacuating main gangway and retracting.
Putting sensor visualization on screen.
With the structural integrity field shut down, we can't take a direct hit.
Time to impact. 1 minute.
Shield systems are severely impacted. We have limited protection.
I need every available solution. What are our options?
We can weaken the impact of the storm with a deflector pulse.
There's a better way.
I'm sending all auxiliary power to the deflector dish.
Send the aux power to the shields. We can't reactivate the entire shield bubble, but it's a directional threat. So we can orient all we have towards the wave. You have to believe me.
We only get one shot at this. We can't afford to get it wrong.
That's right, which is why we need to send power to our shields.
Petrosian, get those shields up.
Rerouting power to shields. Stand by. I need a heading. We've only got one shot.
Understood. On my command.
Hey, what are we doing?
Heading locked.
Raise shields.
This is it!
All hands, brace for impact.
Whoa!
What happened?
We have experienced a surge of radiation.
Oh, you don't say.
This radiation supercharged the plasma, forcing it to backflush through the system and creating a dangerous imbalance.
That can blow out every primary system on the ship.
Just tell us where you need us.
I need you to traverse the hull to the access port to recalibrate the port nacelle plasma regulator.
So I suppose we'll find out before the end whether that the XO made the right call.
Do you see the override for the level 1 failsafe circuits?
Affirmative.
Engage the override. It should allow us to stop the EPS flow to the warp engine without triggering an automatic core shutdown.
Never actually played STO.
Failsafe override engaged.
Are you sure? I am registering some crosstalk in the bypass circuit.
We need to route the signals so they don't interfere with each other.
Diaz to Resolute. The failsafes are temporarily disabled. Moving on to the EPS regulator.
Heads up, Carter.
What is that?
One of the discharges coalesced.
It's coming right toward us. I'm gonna try to disrupt it with my phaser.
So we gotta climb up the pylon. Not that there's really an up, but, you know.
See, this is where I would hope we get a little more Star Trek music, you know?
Are you alright?
Yeah. Suit took most of it. Snuck up on me.
That damaged your suit. Energy dampening is down to 60%.
Uh-oh. Made it.
We're at the regulator point. Opening the access panel.
I am now halting the EPS flow to the port nacelle. We have little time before it causes an overload in the engine. You must work efficiently.
Working on it, Chief Engineer.
EPS manifold adjusters reset to neutral. EPS lines to the port warp engine are back in balance. Almost done. Once I cycle the manifold nozzles, Chovak can... Get down! DS to bridge. We just lost the docking clamp. We've got a lot of debris coming down. All vibrations, too. We can't finish the EPS regulation in these conditions. Please advise.
We have to release the ship from that other docking clamp or the hull will be ripped apart.
There's a problem. The clamps are supposed to disengage automatically in an emergency, but it's not working.
Not working.
What are our options?
The docking clamps are fitted with exploding bolts for an emergency release.
We've got crew out there. That'd be like setting off a bomb next to them.
Maybe there's another way.
Starbase is hailing us.
Put him through.
Resolute, the remaining mooring arm is failing. You need to disengage from the starbase now. The damage to the station will be catastrophic.
All right, Starbase, we're on it.
Acknowledged.
Commander, hear me out. Reverse the polarity of the hull, which theoretically will repel the docking clamps.
And repel the engineering crew right off the hull into the storm.
This is Captain Solano. Put me on screen.
Go ahead. Captain, we have a situation.
Commander, what are you doing? Blow the bolts on the docking clamp.
The captain doesn't know the whole story.
I'm giving you an order.
All due respect, sir, it's a more complex situation than when you
Jara,
disembarked.
I need you to do the right thing. We can't have this go sideways before we even leave for the mission.
The captain made himself quite clear.
They're gonna get hammered with debris out there. Reverse the polarity.
There is protocol.
And there are lives.
What is the holdup?
Starbase, stand by. We're gonna flip hull polarity to disengage the clamps.
Why did they...
Yes, Commander.
They don't want me to blow a bomb. Alright, well clearly I pissed off the captain already. This is going great.
Acting Captain Jara Rydek. Be advised, we are going to reverse hull polarity to free us from the remaining docking clamp. Tether yourself and deactivate your boots on my mark.
Understood.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark!
Perfect.
Plasma imbalance is reaching critical condition. We are moments from primary system failure.
I got it.
Come on. Yeah, she's an unjoined trill.
Look out!
I got you. Petty Officer Etzelar's hurt and unconscious. I'm gonna have to tow her back to the airlock.
Mr. Diaz, the situation has changed. You are at risk of triggering a substantial electromagnetic arc if you approach the main hull the way you came.
But Commander, the way we came is the nearest airlock.
There is an auxiliary hatch near you on the far end of the pylon. You must bring Miss Etzelar there to access the interior.
Roger that. Going there now.
It's gonna be weird going from this to that new Warhammer game. Very different kind of games. But we'll get through this on stream first before we change to that. While we're doing this part, my plan will be possibly stream tomorrow, but definitely Friday, Fortnite. And then Saturday's movie night. We're going to watch Across Into the Spider-Verse and then possibly Sisu.
Hey, yo.
You go first.
What?
Let me save your neck this time. No time to fight me on this. Get in there.
You better be right behind me.
Oh, it's going to be stuck.
We're in.
They're safe, bringing the Sif fully online.
Do it.
Carter!
I'm okay. I'm okay. But Etzelar...
Here, let me help you.
Yeah, don't cross your arms. Maybe help.
Medical. We've got one wounded at my location. Millie.
Oh, man.
We'll see you at sickbay.
So far, I'm really digging the story, though. I like the...
Status report.
The repair crew made it inside. EPS flow is back to nominal levels. The SIF is back up.
How does this affect mission readiness, Mr. Ermont?
Releasing the docking clamps using hull polarity minimized damage to the Resolute. We'll have some last-minute repairs to make, but if we reapportion some of the staff, we can make our departure on time. As of now, however, we are successfully moored to the station.
Good to hear. Send updates to my ready room. Commander Rydek, with me.
Oh, he ain't happy.
You disobeyed my orders. Well?
Respectfully, Captain, I made the right choice given the
You
information I had.
disobeyed my orders! And not just in front of the bridge crew, but the Starbase staff as well. That's going to get around. My name's already tarnished around the fleet.
A little audio out of balance there.
What is it going to do to my credibility on this ship? From the top to the bottom. Bridge to lower decks.
He's not gonna like me, but fuck it.
Captain, I told you I'd be honest, so here it is. Maybe I shouldn't have disobeyed a direct order, but you were wrong. You weren't on board, and you didn't have all the information. So I made the right decision for the ship. If you're worried about your credibility, put your ego aside and trust your crew. Trust me.
You might have won some fans on the bridge with that stunt, but not everyone. Lieutenant Commander Chovak has already bent my ear.
I'm sure he doesn't take it personally. He'll get over it in time.
Mr. Chovak is more complicated than he would want to admit. I guess we all are. And, if I'm being honest, I'm not sure what I would have done in the moment either. You never really know if you weren't in those shoes. So, let's just boil it down to you did what you had to.
Thank you for understanding, sir. I'm sure no one knows the burden of command as well as you do.
I'm sure you will, someday.
I like her character so far.
Despite it all, we got our final Starfleet clearance to depart. So if you'll fetch Mr. Ermont, we'll knock out the final details of any outstanding repairs, and then we'll set out for Hotari.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, don't freeze, Mike's hard freeze.
All departments reporting full mission readiness. We've got our full complement on board.
Something tells me the captain's not going to live through the game.
Right now.
The start of a new mission is always full of possibility.
The Orion Syndicate could sell it as a drug.
Don't let the Admiralty hear you say that.
Captain on the bridge.
Sit. Sit, everyone. You all know, I'm not big on speeches. We're embarking on the first mission since our refit. Let's make it a good one. Disengage docking clamps.
Docking clamps released.
Thrusters ahead, Mr. Handar.
See, right here, I want the Star Trek theme. Right, I want... No, well, not this. It's like an imitation of Star Trek with the music right now. Which sucks, because they got so much else right. In terms of, like, the look and the feel of Trek of that era.
Okay, that should do it. Set a course for the Hotari system. Prepare to go to Warp 8.
Aye, Captain.
You know what? You take this one.
Me?
I'm saying engage. Come on. It's Star Trek. Fucking gotta. Speaking of Star Trek, I'm going to be doing a Star Trek woodburning for Extra Life. Got Star Wars, Star Trek, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings on tap. It's going to be a good time. I'm doing the Lord of the Rings map. I'm going to try to do the whole Middle Earth map.
Easy. Thank you. I'm fine. Really,
You don't look so good.
Yep, TOS Enterprise.
Go.
Commander, help me get her inside.
Definitely feel like she should have... An officer like her would probably be on like a Cali class ship. Like interior of the Federation only.
Well, that was quite a scare. A few minutes more and it would have been one of the shortest tenures on record for a first officer.
Deborah Wilson?
Is that the engineer that was out on the hull?
That storm did a real number on her, but she'll live. Just needs rest. You should worry about yourself.
It is, I think. It's gotta be, right?
Iridium levels got dangerously low and destabilized your cell structure.
This is definitely one of the more memorable first days I can think of.
My name is Dr. Aram Duval, Chief Medical Officer.
It is.
To be honest, I've never met a Kobliad before.
Second game I played with her this year.
I know.
I was going to say special. Your people's numbers have dwindled, despite the Federation's efforts to find a more readily available alternative to the Duridium you need to survive. Yet you joined Starfleet and managed to thrive. I imagine the responsibility must be overwhelming. Maybe even a burden at times.
I don't like the attention it brings. Being treated differently than everyone else.
But you are different. That's not something you can change.
True. But sometimes it makes it even more difficult than it already is.
And don't worry, I won't treat you like a science experiment. I just do the science and leave the experiments to Solano.
You don't agree with his methods?
I don't agree with his definition of acceptable risks.
I like the doctor.
The crew are at stake. My professional opinion is that the accident took a toll. More than he's willing to admit. He's
Weird the music's
overstressed,
kicking up there.
operating in the pressure cooker of his own mind. Which is never a good headspace when the lives of your crew are at stake. What concerns me is that now he's even further away from the thing he's been chasing his entire career. Breakthrough discovery. The major innovation. Something he can put his name on.
Yeah, I googled
The
it.
time passes and the further out of reach it gets, the more risk he'll be willing to take. People become blinded by their own ambition. I've seen it happen before.
I hear you. But that's my job, isn't it? To make sure that doesn't happen. And we don't lose sight of the bigger picture.
Which is exactly why I'm so glad you're here.
Yep, the doctor's gonna be a friend.
And I have to give you credit for what happened on the bridge. It took guts to defy a direct order.
Huh. I guess word travels fast around here.
It's a small ship. And everyone's curious about the new XO. Fortunately, your cell structure's almost completely stabilized. And I'll spare us both the lecture, but I do feel it's my responsibility to remind you, without regular infusions of Duridium, you will not live. It's as simple as that.
Understood.
And my work here is done.
Should they tell you how long? Because I don't think they really said it much in Deep Space Nine when they showed up.
Lieutenant Bedrosian.
I came to see if you were okay. We were all pretty worried on the bridge. No one knew what was happening.
I can't even imagine what it must have looked like. I don't want people to get the wrong impression.
No, not at all. You don't have to feel embarrassed. Everyone understands this is part of what it means to be Kobliad. You trusted me earlier with the shields, and I appreciated that. I want you to know that I have your back.
The doors just opened? Or are they shut?
Complete the diagnostic sequence, and this shuttle will be cleared for service.
Yes, sir.
Storm in the Hotari region will interfere with our transporters, so we need all available shuttlecraft in working order.
Excuse me, Commander Chobot.
Petty Officer Maris. I will leave you to your work.
I stopped by sick bay and saw Nilly. I figured you'd want to know.
Did the doc get her fixed up?
She's stable. But there's something about the storm's radiation that's making it hard to heal the energy burns.
That doesn't sound good.
She's toughing it out. Dr. Duval...
Yeah, I'm gonna... Does it sound like I need to rebalance some of the audio? It does to me, but it could be my headphones.
said she'll be back on duty soon, though.
Come on.
It just sounds like the sound effects are really blowing out the audio for the dialogue.
I can't stay long. I've got a long to-do list before we get to Hotari, and things are piling on faster than I can check them off. We're making all our last-minute checks in security, too. Tactical and security are short-staffed.
Now, we'll just have to take things as they come. Control what we can, and roll with the punches.
Next thing you're gonna tell me you're listening to Andorian jazz.
No.
The point is, the right time might never come. So, I'm just gonna roll with it. I had a chance to think about this while I was away. Then you and Nilly almost got killed out on the hull. And I thought it was important that I just come out and tell you. Instead of tiptoeing around it. Or worse.
This is just a guess, but you like me. Is that what this is?
How'd you know? Must have been pretty obvious. Which is funny because kinda came out of nowhere for me at first.
Well, you know, I was hoping.
I guess that makes this a little easier to say. We've been really good friends for a long time. I want to see if there's more between us than just being friends.
You don't have to explain it. I feel the same way. There is something between us.
So, do you want to find out what that something is? If it's there for you, and it's there for me, why not give it a try?
Oh, the Stanley Cup?
I just said yes.
I wanted to be sure I heard that right.
These are uncharted territories.
I'd call it a chemistry experiment. You know, with us.
I'm just really glad that you said something.
I've seen how you operate. I couldn't wait for you to make the first move. I'm glad too.
My guess is there's going to be a little love triangle situation with the other engineering officer.
Level 1 diagnostic complete.
I have to get back to that to-do list. They're probably looking for me.
Can't blame them.
I'll be seeing you.
Approaching the rendezvous point outside Atari space.
Helm, bring us out of warp.
Dropping to impulse.
Ionic interference surging, Captain.
Shield integrity holding.
We can take it.
We are at the correct coordinates to meet the shuttle.
Commander Rydek, find us our diplomat, if you will.
Aye, Captain. Let's reduce the noise. Filter out environmental signals. I can manually tune what's left for Federation signal types. I've located the shuttle.
Opening comms.
On screen.
Shuttle to Resolute. Shuttle to Resolute. Debris field. Lost maneuvering.
Oh, it's a shuttle from the Excelsior?
We won't get a transporter lock. It's just not happening.
Power up the tractor beam. We'll pull them directly into the docking bay.
Diaz, you good to run the tractor emitter?
Yes, sir.
Come on, Diaz. First thing, lock onto the shuttle and stabilize the rotation. We're pulling in debris.
I'm on it.
Oh, we got a big one coming.
That's gonna take out the shuttle. Diaz, the bridge. There's a large piece of debris headed for the shuttle. The tractor beam can't handle it.
Can our shields take it?
I believe so.
Commander Ryder, plot an intercept course.
On it.
Here we go. Maneuvering thrusters bearing 53 Mark 17. 200 meters on an intercept course.
Maneuvering.
Got it.
Whoa! Someone's working hard on the bridge.
Yeah. Fuck off, giant rock. Yeah, that didn't need to happen. That you could have just had him bring it on in the cutscene. Yeah, that's one way to do it. I can't wait to see what they do with the Expanse because of how technically, like, scientifically awesome the Expanse is for, like, hard sci-fi. Can't wait to see what this team does with that. Fucking love that universe. What's up, Rhoda?
Shuttlecraft on board.
Good job. We're on our way down to meet them.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Is this where we meet the one guy? Yeah. Sorry, he was in the trailer stuff.
Ambassador Spock. The captain will be right down to meet you, sir.
In that case, I will wait for him here.
That's a passable Nimoy. Yeah, it's Dramatic Labs. So, but most of the people that left
Apologies
Telltale.
for the landing, Ambassador. I was operating the tractor beam, sir. I take responsibility.
Our arrival was the smoothest part of our journey. Your artistry with a tractor beam is commendable. We thought we were prepared for our arrival in Hotari space, but it is evident my craft was not sufficiently robust for such intense ionic activity.
The storm has been pretty intense.
There was an element that was most unusual. Before you came to our aid, our maneuvering thrusters and impulse engines were rendered inoperable. So we attempted a short traversal at warp speed, only to find that we could not achieve warp at all, even though our diagnostics computer showed no faults or anomalies. What do you make of that? When all indications say that warp speed is possible, but in practice, we find it is not.
Well, this storm is one of the strangest phenomena we've ever encountered. It's disrupted other systems. Who knows what it might do to a warp drive?
Yes, it would seem further investigation is called for.
We'll take readings, run some additional diagnostic checks, and we'll get to the bottom of this.
Quite logical. Petty Officer...
Carter Diaz. Sir.
Thank you.
Ambassador Spock.
Excuse me.
I'm honored to have you aboard. I'd like to get right to it. We're already behind.
Oh, that's an ominous title.
Ambassador Spock, my senior staff. It's not every day that a captain gets to welcome a Starfleet legend aboard.
You flatter me, Captain Solana. But legend implies the past tense, whereas I am very much focused on our present circumstances.
I didn't mean to suggest you were stuck in the past. You're right, Ambassador. Not the most diplomatic choice of words.
We're all curious about the future, Ambassador. Specifically, what exactly are we getting involved in here?
We got the basics from Starfleet. Two formerly peaceful neighbors are now on the brink of war.
Indeed, and the tension between them grows fiercer by the hour.
Time for a good old Star Trek debrief.
Lydia and Hotari. The Lydians are the more advanced species. They made first contact with the Hotari over a century ago. This is Tau, the Hotari moon. It is rich in dilithium, and for decades, the Hotari and the Illydians have shared a mining operation there. The Illydians provide the technological resources, while the Hotari have served as the labor force. The stability of that arrangement was the source of their peace, until recently. The Hotari have suddenly and forcefully seized control of the mining operations and expelled the Illydians from their system. That is the official story, as told by the Hotari when they requested Federation mediation. But the details remain scant. Communications between all parties have been limited by the ionic interference.
Have the Illydians retaliated against the Hotari? Or taken any action against them?
Surprisingly, they have not yet responded in kind. They were open to a Federation presence, but it is unlikely the relatively primitive Hotari forces would stand a chance against the Illydian fleet in open war. Left unchecked, this conflict will result in more bloodshed, which is what we are here to prevent.
And the dilithium trade hangs in the balance.
Clearly, the Hotari have been exploited in this relationship.
Maybe we can persuade them peace is the more profitable alternative for everyone. They both profited from the mines. And for the Hotari, something is better than nothing. Peace is our objective, after all.
That is correct.
The Hotari just won their independence. It's hard to believe they would give that up just for profit.
I agree. It would be exceedingly difficult to bring the Hotari to that position.
Neither the Illydians or the Hotari are members of the Federation, so we can't make them do anything.
There is an additional complicating factor I should mention. In the past, the Federation has relied on the Illydians as a source of dilithium.
That certainly changes things.
Federation sources its dilithium from a lot of places.
Yeah, and this is one of them.
We could use that as leverage with the Illydians. They'll want the Federation to continue buying from them.
There might be something to that, Commander.
Putting that on the table could make the Hotari more hostile.
Given the Federation's involvement in the Iridium dilithium trade, Captain Solano and I must make every effort to appear neutral in these negotiations.
What worries me is if this whole thing unravels, and we're at the mercy of the storm at less than full strength.
We can't let it come to that.
Considering what the ion storm has done to our ship, and the Ambassador's shuttle, we have to assume the Ilidian fleet has had problems with it as well. This recent surge in the energy disturbance temporarily levels the playing field.
Commander Westbrook is correct. The energy anomalies around the Hotari systems have been noted in the past. But they have never been observed on the orders of magnitude we have seen in recent weeks.
That may answer why the Hotari were able to strike back after so long. They finally had an opportunity, and they took it.
That would also explain the Ilidians' restraint.
And reason to learn as much about the energy anomaly as we can while we are here. We do not want to be caught at a disadvantage of our own. So I trust we understand our circumstances.
We're operating on a strict timetable here, and we're going to be leaving for the negotiations shortly. Commander Westbrook, I want you to leverage our systems to investigate the anomaly from here while we're gone.
Aye, Captain.
Thank you all.
Dismissed.
I want to speak to both of you privately.
Ambassador Spock, I'd like to make a formal introduction. My first officer, Commander Jara Rydek.
Commander, as you are aware, there are limits to what Captain Solano and I can do in our official capacity as representatives of the Federation. But someone in an unofficial capacity, your first officer, for example, would not be bound.
Little
by
audio off there.
Commander Rydek could ingratiate herself to certain parties behind the scenes, where they may be more candid in revealing information that could lead to a resolution.
She certainly goes her own way. Maybe that helps in this case. It would be unconventional, but I'm not opposed to it.
With all due respect, Ambassador, I'm not a trained diplomat.
That's exactly what we're going to leverage.
I began my time in Starfleet as a science officer, not as an ambassador. We must be adaptable in the line of duty.
Well, I hope Commander Rydek will have more luck finding out what really happened than we will through official diplomatic channels.
The fate of the negotiations, the interests of the Federation, and the prospect for peace.
Oh, subtitle fail.
May very well depend on it.
All right, I'm just gonna... Oh, he's not happy. I'm just checking in on what everybody thinks. It sounds like it. You know what, Edslar, you told him to go first. Edslar doesn't get to be annoyed.
Mr. Diaz, I understand you have already discussed the warp drive failure with Ambassador Spock?
I have.
It is imperative that the Ambassador's shuttle be flight ready. I need you both to ascertain the root cause of the system failures he encountered.
I'm surprised, Commander. I thought you would have wanted to work on Ambassador Spock's shuttle yourself.
I respect the Ambassador and his many accomplishments, but I do not derive any satisfaction from interacting with his shuttle as if it were somehow transubstantiated through its association with him. Especially when I have the entirety of this starship to concern myself with. I am not the chief engineer of this shuttlecraft.
When you look at it logically, yes, it is just a shuttle. No different than any of the others.
There is plenty that is different about it, and that is what you are to investigate. But please limit your findings to observable scientific phenomena.
We'll try to restrain ourselves.
Then I will leave you to it. Make note of any abnormalities in your report. Carry on.
One nice thing about Vulcans, Chovak is the only person who didn't look at this and treat me like I was something to pity. Doc says I should get used to it. Doesn't mean I want to be reminded of it every minute of the day.
Hey, you won't get pity from me. I think it makes you look tough. As tough as you really are, that is.
And that makes you sound pretty smart. I might need you to save me from myself next time, though. Come on.
Yeah, like why you're annoyed at someone you told to go first.
Ready to go?
All set. Let's run the diagnostic.
Okay, that's fun. I don't like this control at all.
So, I know about your talk with Miranda.
You do?
She sent me a Priority 1 dispatch right after your conversation. I'm happy for you.
Okay, that was a really weird eyebrow animation.
Thanks.
But I'm only going to tell you this once. Don't screw this up. Because I would be very unhappy if you tried this out and then, I don't know, 6 weeks or 6 days later I have to start...
Yeah, she's full, yeah.
Holidays between the
that
two
or related to
all
Nimoy.
because things went south and you're not on speaking terms.
Yeah.
That just isn't gonna work for me. And I know you'll respect that.
You really don't believe in me, huh?
It's not you. Or her. Just running the numbers, and things don't work out more often than they do. I like my friends, and I like our group. I don't want to lose that. Is that thing done yet?
Yeah, it's wrapping up. Let's see. The relays along the primary EPS are blown. The backup relays are all intact.
An EPS overload from the warp drive could cause that. But how did the shuttle end up dead in the water?
Huh. Well, maybe the ship's data recorder can tell us something. Here.
They were only about 8 minutes from their plotted warp point. No faults, just those warnings. What are they?
The warp field became inverted suddenly.
I've seen this happen when the center warp coil cracks.
A cracked warp coil throws a fault code.
Still, we should take a look.
There was a complete warp cascade failure.
Wow. They're lucky the shuttle didn't turn inside out.
Makes me think the computer panicked on the warp field equation. Subspace variance out of tolerance. What does that mean?
It means the main navigation array lost sight of space somehow.
Will the array going offline cause that?
Yes, but it should have also thrown a fault code.
Yeah, their facial animations are wonky.
And one of these failures should have thrown a fault.
If it was caused by a system failure.
None of this caused the relays to blow. Roll forward to when that happened.
Yes, ma'am.
I hope with the Expanse one, since it'll be more
take a
Primorph,
moment to get their bearings
they're
and
gonna
they
base it
attempt
on
to
someone's
re-engage
face.
warp drive.
There. That's the relays blowing.
And look, there's another warp system alert.
They're all the same. Subspace variance out of tolerance, or warp inversions. Finally, there's a complete warp cascade failure.
Then it's one of two things. Either a warp coil is cracked, or the navigation array is offline.
That makes sense.
Divide and conquer. You want to check the warp coils or the navigation array? I'll check the other. Let's not overcomplicate this. One of these systems is likely broken.
I'll check the nacelles for a cracked coil.
Tricorder usage. Your tricorder can record and analyze data. Looking through it will reveal the unseen. Use X to equip or holster. Hold right trigger to scan glowing objects. You must be close to objects to scan. Watch the frame of the screen to see. Whoa, what the... Why'd that go to bit? Why is that even an option to go to main menu? I gotta redo the whole thing. Ah! I can see why some of the reviewers were not happy with this mechanic. Like, why is that even an option to go to the main menu there?
Mr. Diaz, I understand you have already discussed the warp drive failure with Ambassador Spock?
I have.
Well, we're redoing the whole
It is
thing.
imperative that the Ambassador's shuttle be flight ready. I need you both to ascertain the root cause of the system failures he encountered.
Nope, you can't skip.
I'm surprised, Commander. I thought you would have wanted to work on Ambassador Spock's shuttle yourself.
I respect the Ambassador and his many accomplishments, but I do not derive any satisfaction
Like-
from interacting with his shuttle as if it were somehow
Like, hey, Dramatic
transubstantiated
Labs?
through its association.
You need to skip dialogue option. Even if we haven't played through it once. Because I have, and I can't skip through it now, and it kind of sucks.
With him.
I'm gonna clip that
Especially
out.
when I have the entirety of this starship to concern myself with. I am not the chief engineer of this shuttlecraft.
Commander Chovak, is there anything you do enjoy?
I take pleasure in the satisfaction of a job well done. I suggest you try it sometime. Make note of any abnormalities in your...
Oh, I don't think he liked that.
Carry on.
Was that a joke?
No, couldn't have been.
Yep, he didn't like that.
Vulcans. Chovak is the only person who didn't look at this and treat me like I was something to pity.
Rhoda will remember this.
Doc says I should get used to it. Doesn't mean I want to be reminded of it every minute of the day.
I don't know what you're talking about. Nothing to see here.
Good. Look, I hate saying this, but every once in a while you shouldn't listen to me. Like when I'm half concussed telling you to go first. This isn't one of those times, though. Come on. Let's get to the bottom of this.
Alright, well that one was positive.
Ready to go?
All set. Let's run the diagnostic. So, I know about your talk with Miranda.
You do?
She sent me a Priority 1 dispatch right after your conversation. I'm happy for you. Both of you.
Thanks.
But I'm only going to tell you this once. Don't screw this up. Because I would be very unhappy if you tried this out and then, I don't know, 6 weeks or 6 days later, I have to start splitting holidays between the two of you. All because things went south and you're not on speaking terms.
You really don't believe in me, huh?
It's not you. Or her. Just running the numbers, and things don't work out more often than they do. I like my friends, and I like our group. I don't want to lose that. Is that thing done yet?
Yeah, it's wrapping up. Let's see. The relays along the primary EPS are blown. The backup relays are all intact.
An EPS overload from the warp drive could cause that. But how did the shuttle end up dead in the water?
Huh. Well, maybe the ship's data recorder can tell us something. Here.
They were only about 8 minutes from their plotted warp point. No faults, just those warnings. What are they?
Subspace variance out of tolerance. What does that mean?
It means the main navigation array lost sight of space somehow.
Will the array going offline cause that?
Yes, but it should have also thrown a fault code.
The warp field became inverted suddenly.
I've seen this happen when the center warp coil cracks.
A cracked warp coil throws a fault code.
Still, we should take a look.
There was a complete warp cascade failure.
Wow. They're lucky the shuttle didn't turn inside out.
Makes me think the computer panicked on the warp field equation.
Any one of these failures should have thrown a fault.
If it was caused by a system failure.
None of this caused the relays to blow. Roll forward to when that happened.
Yes, ma'am.
Another subtitle fail.
So here, they take a moment to get their bearings and they attempt to re-engage the warp drive.
There. That's the relays blowing.
And look, there's another warp system alert.
They're all the same. Subspace variants out of tolerance, or warp inversions. Finally, there's a complete warp cascade failure.
Then it's one of two things. Either a warp coil is cracked, or the navigation array is offline.
That makes sense.
Divide and conquer. You want to check the warp coils or the navigation array? I'll check the other. Let's not overcomplicate this. One of these systems is likely broken.
I'll check the nacelles for a cracked coil.
Let's see if I don't fuck this up. During a deep scan, use left and right bumper to switch between different scan modes and search for glowing objects. The mode indicators on the tricorder will blink if there is an object to find in that mode.
I checked every coil on the port nacelle for imbalances. If any coil in either engine were cracked, I would have detected it. So, it must be the navigation array.
Except it's not. Checked and double-checked.
Well, the readings don't lie.
Here comes the security detail for the way team.
Hey.
I'm not here.
We're escorting the negotiating team to the surface as soon as they come down from the bridge. I don't want to interrupt some important work. I was just hoping to see you before I go. The captain and the others will be here any minute now. Should be an interesting ride down to the surface.
You're the one with the important job to do. Keeping the captain safe. And Ambassador Spock.
It doesn't always feel that way. Baking in the hot sun, standing guard next to an empty shuttlecraft. But it has its moments.
Hey, Maris. Aren't these those button pushers you're always hanging out with?
And you're the phaser jockeys we always beat in Parisi squares, right?
All aboard for Hotari.
That another one of the captain's railroad things?
Gotta be. I just usually zone out by the time he gets to the whole, steam engines were the warp drives of their day part. Catch y'all later.
You don't want to miss your train.
I do have to go. Not gonna lie, I'd rather not leave right now. More important things on my mind.
Go on. Do your job. I'll be right here waiting for you when you get back.
You better be.
Yeah, I can't really kiss her in front of the captain. I don't think that'd be...
Be seeing you.
Let's say... by the book.
Florida Diaz. If you could float back down to reality, we still have a ways to go. All right, where were we?
So, the warp coils in the navigation array are fine, but the nav computer doesn't seem to think so.
I'm out of ideas short of field stripping the shuttle from bow to stern.
You wanna take this out of the shuttle and throw it on the bench?
Oh, real hands-on maintenance. I like it. Okay, the nav computer is patched into the ship.
The ship's computer can double-check our work. If the shuttle's nav computer is
Yes,
putting
the
out
balance,
false data,
like, his first
no.
sentence there was way louder than everything that followed.
Running now. Same. Warp field inversion and the cascade failure. However, the Resolute computer doesn't show the same subspace variance.
We're in the same conditions that the shuttle was in when it failed. Why wouldn't the ship's computer get a matching result?
What if the subspace variance was a momentary occurrence?
That's a possibility, and it would explain why the simulation under our current sensor readings failed to reproduce the issue.
But a subspace anomaly strong enough to cause a warp field collapse would leave graviton ripples for days.
Let's run with the momentary subspace variance theory for now. Roll forward to the shuttle's attempt to re-engage the warp drive. We need the conditions of space around the shuttle at the moment of warp failure.
Resuming simulation.
Error in warp field calculation. Cochrane formula variables are out of range.
That right there. Take the shuttle sensor data from that moment.
Computer, why did the warp field calculation fail?
Warp field pressure returned non-orthogonal. Results are undefined.
That doesn't help.
Wait, what if we use a different ship?
Put the Resolute into the simulation instead of the shuttle.
Yeah.
That from Cochrane,
Should work just
indeed.
fine. Unless... Computer, run the simulation with the Resolute.
Resolute simulated.
Computer, give me manual control on the warp power.
Static field intensity, warp 1.1. 1.2. 3. Warp pressure is destabilizing. Error in warp field calculation. The warp drive has experienced a system-wide cascade failure. Warp field collapsed. Subspace variance is out of tolerance. Cochrane formula results are undefined.
Bingo.
What-o?
The same moment when the shuttle failed to warp, so did the ship. Whatever happened to the shuttle just happened to us. The Resolute will not sustain warp.
We can't leave Hotari space.
Alright, we'll get through this next sequence and then probably call it. I'll try to do it in about 2-hour chunks of actual stream time. Kind of an RPG, more of a straight-up adventure type game, because there's no, like, stats or anything to actually, like, you know, manage. It's really all about the decision-making and character interactions. It's a Telltale style game, basically, from their heyday. It's most of the same crew.
Captain Solana, welcome to Hotari. We are honored you've come.
Also, welcome to the stream.
My name is Tylos Altaris, Minister of Diplomatic Affairs.
The honor is ours, and this is Commander Jara Rydick, First Officer aboard the USS Resolute. You'll find she has a keen mind, and unique insight into the dynamics between the Hotari and the Illydians.
We are honored to be here as representatives of the Federation.
I'm so glad.
These must be the representatives of the mighty Federation, the reigning authority in the galaxy. Or so we've been led to believe. Whether that's true or not remains to be seen. But either way.
Oh, fair enough. If you're here for the actual story and you're going to play it yourself, completely understand.
And you are?
Big fan of Star Trek, though, so I wanted to stream it for all my people that aren't going to play the
Heroes of
game.
the revolt in the mines.
We are getting into the main plot of the campaign right now, so if you would want to bounce, I totally understand.
Have to come here. If you'll excuse me.
I think we're about to begin.
Did you hear the arrogance from that guy? I don't know what we're walking into here, but that guy was something.
That may be true. But let's keep an open mind going into the negotiations. Hopefully he's just one voice amongst many.
Then let's hope he's the outlier.
The Hotari have invited us as their guests, so we must show them the proper respect.
Let's show strength. Let's see what happens. Nope, I don't think she liked that.
Ambassador Spock, welcome to Hotari Prime.
The honor is mine, Your Majesty.
That the Federation would send one of their most respected representatives is not only an honor to the Hotari people and their queen, but recognition of our stature and importance.
Let's get on with it, shall we? With all due respect to the Federation and their ambassador, they have no authority here. We are not members of their alliance. We are not subject to their rule, nor yours. We demand the immediate return of all mining operations to Elydian control, as it has been for centuries and will be for centuries more. That has always been our understanding.
That understanding has changed.
Then you invite war.
And if you cannot remain silent, you will be silenced. But his point is well taken. What is the Federation's interest in this matter? Perhaps you would have us trade one oppressor for another?
The Federation remains neutral. Our only interest is the peaceful resolution of this conflict. We are here at your request, Your Majesty.
For now.
I'm trying to keep an open mind here, but it's not easy. I thought they wanted us here.
Was there something you wanted to say, Captain?
Oh, no. My apologies.
And what about the Kobliad?
She's not part
She
of...
can speak for herself, can't she? Then let her.
Okay. Let's see how we should play this.
Now then, one should know their place. What you might be somewhere else is not what you are here. Which is standing before a queen. And a queen deserves respect. A bow is not too much to ask. Is Hotari Prime, heart of the Hotari system.
My apologies, Your Majesty. I meant no disrespect.
Better. You are Kobliad. Your people suffered brutal treatment at the hands of the Cardassians. Their injustice towards the Kobliad is as unimaginable as it is unforgivable. Not unlike how we have been treated by the Elydians.
As much as they'd have you believe they are the victims here, remember it was the Hotari who attacked us. Hundreds of innocent Elydians were slaughtered without mercy in those mines.
The blood is on their hands, not ours.
Quiet! If after all the Kobliad suffered, you finally had the chance to right that wrong, to get out from under their control, Would you take it? Or would you negotiate a peace?
There is no remedy for what the Kobliad suffered, and I fear who we might have become in pursuit of it. There is no justice if the oppressed become the oppressor. So I would willingly accept a peaceful resolution if it were offered. That is the real opportunity.
You may be right. Unfortunately, that was not the case, was it?
No, it was not.
Peace is often elusive to those who need it most. The Federation is the most powerful, most advanced alliance in the galaxy. It's widely known we have an abundance of dilithium in our mines. And it's in your interest to secure a steady supply.
Your Majesty, if I may.
Ambassador Spock would have us believe you're here as a neutral party in the interest of peace. So why are you really here? I want the truth, not your Federation rhetoric.
It's possible the Federation has an interest in both peace and securing a steady source of dilithium. One does not preclude or prevent the other. But that's just my personal opinion.
Given the Federation has done business with the Elidians for decades, I would agree. It's entirely possible, if not highly likely.
What they haven't said, but cannot deny, is a simple truth. The dilithium trade would not and will no longer exist without Elidian involvement. We created it for the benefit of everyone, especially the Hotari. We've given them warp technology. We've let them share in the profits. We've made their lives infinitely better than before dilithium was discovered. All of that goes away if the Federation turns a blind eye to their treachery.
That is enough of your lies! The Hotari are quite capable of running the mines. We've done so for centuries. Don't tell me, who deserves control of the dilithium trade and the mines on Tau? Who should the Federation recognize? The Hotari or the Elidians?
Oh.
Only be one or the other, not both.
Fuck it, we'll say the Hotari.
If I have to choose only one, then it would have to be the Hotari.
Well said. How could the just and wise Federation make any other choice?
This is an outrage. The Federation has lost all credibility.
The mines are ours. Lydia will not be deterred. We will take back our mines by any means necessary.
Then you will see more blood spilled.
I am more than willing to address your concerns, Your Majesty. Yours as well, Representative. But I suggest we could have a more productive conversation with a smaller group. Perhaps only the most essential representatives.
I suppose there is some sense to that. I hope we meet again.
Commander Jara Rydek, Your Majesty.
It's been a pleasure, Commander Rydek.
Spock and I will cover everything on the diplomatic front. You make nice with the locals and see if you can get some answers. We need to find out why the Hotari are so willing to risk war. What happened in those mines?
I think... Did we hit a save point? Alright, after I see the next save point, I'm done. But I'm liking it so far. It feels like a very... This could be an episode of a sequel series to the Nemesis, you know? Like, it feels like it could be on, like, a non-comedy version of Lower Decks, you know?
Soothing.
Commander, I'm glad you've chosen to side with the Hotari. I knew the Federation would see through the Elidians' baseless claims and protect the interests of my people.
The Hotari have suffered enough at the hands of the Elidians.
I couldn't agree more.
I assume you were there the day the mines were seized from the Elidians.
Not seized. Reclaimed. And restored to their rightful owners. Yes, I was there. We had to be decisive. Before the Elidians could even realize their worst nightmare was upon them.
I'm curious why the Elidians haven't fought back. They have the ability to retake the mines anytime they want.
Ability is one thing. Courage is another. The Elidians know any hostile action on their part will not end well. They respect one thing above all else, and that is force. The greater the force, the more certain the outcome. Any talk of making peace is just that, and worth little without the strength to secure it. Which makes me wonder about your ship, the Resolute. Undoubtedly the Federation's finest warship. Ready to contend with anything the Elidians might have in store. Or is that not true? Maybe I've misjudged it.
I wouldn't say state-of-the-art, but the Resolute is plenty capable and can hold its own against just about anything.
Let's hope so. Because at the moment, it's the only thing preventing them from wiping us off the map.
Sidron.
A pleasure meeting you, Commander. I'm sure we'll cross paths again.
Commander Rydek, I'm encouraged to see the Federation supporting my people. I'm afraid of what might happen without your help.
If anyone deserves thanks, it's Ambassador Spock. No one is more invested in negotiating a peaceful settlement to this conflict than he is.
I'm so glad. We need his help before the situation escalates further than it already has. It's been very trying. I saw you speaking with Sidron, our national hero. I'm curious, what did he say?
He seems to be of the opinion that negotiating for peace is a waste of time.
Because force is the only blunt instrument he understands. He's a miner, not a diplomat. For the first time in our history, the Hotari have the upper hand. We see ourselves as strong instead of downtrodden. New voices have risen up. Old voices shouted down. Galvin and Sidron have become national heroes. Now they have the Queen's ear. Better or worse, depending on your perspective.
I get the sense you don't exactly trust them.
I don't trust their instincts, which are leading us to war. My fear has been that the Elidians will launch an attack and crush us. You've seen their starship, no doubt. They could have retaken the mines whenever they wanted to, but it never happened. And as strange as this may sound, I'd almost say they're afraid. I just don't know what they're afraid of. It's still the same bluster and bravado you would expect from them. But it has no teeth. Like they're afraid of what might happen.
Do you think it has something to do with the ion storm? Right now, it's stronger than ever, isn't it?
It's entirely possible. I'm not a scientist, but I do know the storm has knocked out all kinds
They
of
dug
systems.
too deep, too greedily.
So maybe the Lydians weren't willing to risk their ships, given all the interference. Since the day of the revolt, Galvin has seized control of the mines and restricted all access. No one's allowed without his personal authorization. And they've taken over a section of the palace with just as much secrecy and security. I'm told it could be something they brought back from the mines. I've made inquiries, but everyone pretends it doesn't exist. I strongly suspect they're hiding something.
What do you think it is?
I've heard rumors it's some sort of ancient artifact, but I haven't seen it myself.
How can we know?
I'd better see what's happening.
Do you think you can find out what they're hiding? I need to see proof of something before I can make my case to the Federation.
I can try, but even if I found it, I might not know what to make of it.
Take this. You can use it to capture whatever you find, and then send it to me.
Thank you. I will let you know what I find. And I look forward to our meeting again.
Sorry, I couldn't help but notice you were speaking with the Hotari this whole time. I figured in the interest of fairness, I should offer another perspective.
Of course.
I'm probably not telling you anything you don't already know, but these negotiations rely on the Federation's neutrality, as does any hope you might have for a supply of dilithium in the future. So, why you would choose to side with the Hotari escapes me. Without a Lydian involvement, there is no dilithium trade. But clearly, you weren't aware.
Of all my concerns, dilithium is not one of them. I could care less about securing a supply, now or in the future.
I'd be curious to know if the rest of the Federation shares your indifference. Major Sarlet Arminta, Special Attaché, Lydian Armed Forces. Pleasure to meet you, Commander. I have my issues with the Hotari, but I have to give them some credit. They know how to seize an opportunity. Inciting an uprising the same day as a massive once-in-a-lifetime ion storm.
Our assumption was that this storm was just an anomaly.
Yes, a very convenient anomaly. At least that was what we were told. Of course, I wasn't there. But who am I to say otherwise?
You sound skeptical.
Well, the official story is that it was the storm that enabled the revolt. How else do a bunch of unarmed, unorganized miners seize control of an entire moon, much less thousands of mines? But I've talked to people who were there. They tell a different story. They say they're lucky to have escaped with their lives. That it was more than just the storm. That somehow the miners were able to harness the energy from the storm. I know it sounds crazy. I'm not even sure I believe it myself. But that's what they said.
You said the Hotari were primitive.
Well, they are.
Except for the part about weaponizing ion storms.
If you'll excuse me, Commander Ryder.
Alright, is there anything else to check out? Okay, I think after this section we'll probably call it here. Assuming I get a save notification. I didn't see that when I left the chamber.
Well, that was a disaster.
What happened?
The Hotari refused to concede anything, so the Illidians stormed out.
The Hotari did not invite us here as peacekeepers. I hope your efforts were more fruitful than ours.
Gravitational harmonics failing to resolve. Warp bubble stability degrading. Increase output to maximum.
Increasing warp output to maximum.
It's happening again.
It is evident that presently the Resolute cannot achieve warp propulsion.
Since our diagnostics rule out any problems with our warp systems or anything about the ship, the problem appears to be the fabric of space itself.
Space itself? You're saying something about this region of space prevents warp travel?
Prevents it, or can't sustain it.
However improbable, that appears to be the case.
We need to know more.
Otherwise, it'll be an extended stay in the Hotari system.
The storm didn't stop us from leaving space dock and traveling here. But could it still be causing this interference with warp travel?
We must follow sound investigatory principles. Do not let an assumed conclusion drive your analysis.
Sometimes we need a little inspired thinking, Mr. Chovak. Captain Solano is on his way back from the negotiations, and I want to have some answers for him when he gets here.
Indeed. Given the facts at hand, we may be able to deploy subspace probes around the ship to construct a clear picture of the phenomenon.
Around the ship. I'll prep a shuttle.
Okay. Did it save? I still didn't see the notification. We'll find out. I hope so.
I'm setting up a waypoint at a distance roughly.
I'm gonna go to main menu and see if it did. So we're gonna play. I think it did. Well, I gotta replay that part, but I'll do that part next stream. So we're gonna call it here. Plan will be stream Friday evening. Play some Fortnite. Chris said he wants to get some games in before the weekend. Saturday night, if you're in the Discord, we're going to be watching one, possibly two movies because they're shorter. We're going to watch the Into the Spider-Verse as Spider-Verse Dose comes out next week. And then we might also watch Sisu this weekend because it's a long weekend for me. And I've been wanting to watch that movie because it's basically World War II Nazi killing John Wick. So I'm in. So stay tuned for that. Of course, if you're not on the Discord, you can hit the ! Discord if you happen to be in chat and not already in there. Yeah, I think we'll call it here. Thanks everyone for hanging. See you Friday.